The air in my dad's office smelled like money. Old leather, espresso from a $5,000 machine, and that faint whiff of cigar smoke he swore he'd quit. I stood there, 32 years old, in a tailored suit that cost more than most people's rent, staring at the San Francisco skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. The Golden Gate Bridge peeked through the fog, a postcard view I'd seen 1,000 times from the top of Caldwell Enterprises. My father, Robert Caldwell, sat behind his massive oak desk, his silver hair catching the light like some kind of corporate king. My mom, Margaret, perched on a chair beside him, her manicured nails tapping nervously against a glass of sparkling water. They were waiting for my answer. "Ethan," Dad said, his voice low and steady, the same tone he used to close billion-dollar deals. "You've got two choices. End it with this girl or you're out. No inheritance, no company, no family. $5 billion, son. Think about that." $5 billion. The number hung in the room like a guillotine. I could feel Mom's eyes boring into me, pleading silently, her perfectly Botoxed face twitching with something close to panic. The contract was already on the desk, a thick stack of legal jargon that boiled down to one thing: ditch Sophie Nguyen, or lose everything the Caldwell name had built over 3 generations. I'd grown up with that name stitched into my DNA. Ethan Caldwell, the golden boy of San Francisco, heir to a real estate and energy empire that owned half the Bay Area's power grid. I looked at the pen Dad slid across the desk, a Mont Blanc that probably cost more than a car. My hand hovered over it for a second, the weight of their stares pressing down on me. Then I thought of her, Sophie, with her wild hair and that spark in her eyes that lit up every room she walked into. I thought of the way she laughed at my dumb jokes, the way she'd grab my hand and drag me through Oakland's back streets like I wasn't some billionaire's kid. I thought of how alive I felt with her, like I'd been sleepwalking through my own life until she shook me awake. "Keep the money," I said, my voice steady, even though my heart was hammering. "I'd choose her." Dad's face didn't move, but I saw the muscle in his jaw twitch. Mom gasped, her glass slipping and splashing water across the Persian rug. I didn't wait for them to argue. I turned, my polished loafers clicking against the hardwood, and walked out. The heavy door slammed shut behind me, the sound echoing through the marble hallway like a gunshot. Portraits of my ancestors, stern men in suits who'd built this empire, watched me go, their painted eyes judging every step. Outside, the San Francisco wind hit me hard, cutting through my jacket. For the first time in my life, there was no driver waiting with a black SUV, no assistant handing me a coffee. Just me, standing on the sidewalk in front of a building with my family's name carved into the stone, feeling the cold seep into my bones. I'd just walked away from $5 billion, a private jet, a mansion in Pacific Heights, and a life where no wasn't even in the vocabulary. And for what? A girl I'd met 3 months ago? People would call me crazy. Hell, I was starting to wonder if I was. But let me back up, because this story didn't start in that office. It started way before that, in a life that looks like a dream on paper but felt like a cage when you lived it. I grew up in a world where money wasn't just power, it was air. You didn't think about it because it was always there. The Caldwell name wasn't just a name, it was a golden ticket. In San Francisco, it opened every door, got you the best table at Nob Hill restaurants, and made sure the bouncers at the hottest clubs waved you through without a second glance. My mornings started with eggs Benedict whipped up by our private chef. Afternoons were spent signing deals that moved millions across spreadsheets, and nights melted into yacht parties on the bay, where champagne flowed like tap water and the skyline glittered like it was ours to keep. That was my normal. Private jets to Vegas for a weekend poker game. Board meetings where I'd scribble my name on a dotted line and watch billions shift hands. A social circle so tight you'd only read about it in Forbes or Vanity Fair. I was Ethan Caldwell, the guy who had it all, 6'2", decent jawline, a Stanford degree framed on my office wall, and a future laid out like a red carpet. Harvard Business School? Check. Taking over Caldwell Enterprises? Check. Marrying some heiress from our world? Someone with a last name as shiny as mine? That was the plan. Tied up in a perfect bow of privilege and expectation. I never questioned it. Why would I? This was the life everyone wanted. Or so I thought. My days were a blur of luxury and routine. Breakfast on the terrace of our Pacific Heights mansion, the fog rolling in over the bay while I scrolled through stock updates on my phone. Lunch meetings at the Battery, where tech bros and old money types swapped business cards like they were Pokemon. Evenings on the yacht, the Golden Horizon, with a rotating cast of friends who'd laugh too loud at my jokes and refill my glass before it was empty. It was easy. Too easy, maybe. But I didn't know any different. Until that night at the Tech Future Conference in Silicon Valley. It was one of those events I usually sleepwalked through. Fake smiles, strategic handshakes, a chance to flash the Caldwell name and remind everyone we were still kings of the energy game. I'd fixed my tie in the hotel suite beforehand, rehearsing the same small talk I'd perfected over years. Yeah, the grid's ours from SF to Sacramento. Let's talk numbers. The conference hall in Palo Alto was buzzing. LED screens flashing startup pitches, suits clinking glasses, the hum of ambition thick in the air. I was there to scope out competition, maybe throw some money at a promising idea to keep Dad happy. Then I saw her. Sophie Nguyen wasn't working the room like everyone else. She wasn't schmoozing VCs or posing for selfies with influencers. She was in a corner, surrounded by a handful of nerdy-looking engineers, her hands flying as she explained something on a beat-up laptop. Her dark hair was pulled into a messy bun, a few strands falling loose, and her eyes, God, those eyes, were bright with a kind of passion I'd never seen in my world. She wore a plain black blazer, nothing fancy, but she stood out like a flare in the dark. I drifted closer, pretending to check my phone, and caught snippets of her voice, sharp, confident, cutting through the noise. Current lithium batteries waste 30% of their capacity. My design cuts that to 5%. Imagine what that could do for rural grids, places big energy doesn't touch. I didn't know what half of it meant, but I couldn't look away. She wasn't selling a product, she was preaching a mission. The engineers nodded like she was handing them the keys to the future. I edged into the circle trying to play it cool, and tossed out a line I thought would impress her. My family owns half the power grid in California, I said, flashing my best boardroom smile. We could use someone like you. She glanced up, sizing me up like I was a puzzle she hadn't decided to solve yet. Then she laughed, not mean, but real. The kind of laugh that made me feel dumb and alive at the same time. Cool story, bro, she said, her lips quirking. Can you tell me how a solar cell actually works? Or do you just sign the checks? The engineers snickered. My face burned, but I laughed too. First time in years I didn't care about looking like the smartest guy in the room. Fair point, I said. Maybe you can teach me. Maybe, she shot back, her eyes locking on mine for a beat too long. If you're not too busy buying the other half of the grid. That was it. That was the moment I knew I was screwed, in the best way possible. Sophie didn't give a damn about my last name, my money, or the private jet parked at SFO. She saw right through the polished Ethan Caldwell act, and instead of running, I wanted more. I wanted her to keep tearing me down until there was nothing left but the real me, whoever that was. That night, walking out of Dad's office, I didn't know where I'd sleep or how I'd pay for my next meal, but I knew one thing: Sophie was worth it. The wind whipped through the streets, and I shoved my hands in my pockets, grinning like an idiot, despite the chaos I'd just unleashed. I'd lost everything I'd ever known, and somehow, I'd never felt freer. If you've ever had to pick between your heart and your bank account, you know it's not an easy call. Drop a comment below and tell me, what would you have done? And hey, if you're hooked on this wild ride already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. Trust me, it only gets crazier from here. I couldn't get her out of my head. That laugh, sharp, real, cutting through the fake-ass chatter of the Tech Future Conference like a knife. Sophie Nguyen had roasted me in front of a bunch of engineers, and instead of crawling back to my VIP corner with my tail between my legs, I was hooked. It was like she'd flipped a switch I didn't even know I had. The next day, I was supposed to be on a jet to LA for some pointless meeting, but all I could think about was finding her again. The conference hall in Palo Alto was still buzzing when I went back. Day 2 of Tech Future, where Silicon Valley's brightest minds and deepest wallets rubbed elbows. The air smelled like overpriced coffee and ambition, with LED screens flashing pitches for AI drones and blockchain whatever. I wandered through the crowd, dodging guys in Patagonia vests trying to pitch me their apps, until I spotted her. Sophie was at a folding table near the back, her beat-up laptop open, scribbling notes on a legal pad like she was solving world hunger. She didn't notice me at first, too caught up in her work, her brow furrowed and her lips moving silently as she muttered equations to herself. I slid into the chair across from her, tossing out a casual, "Hey, solar cell girl, still think I'm just a check signer?" She looked up, startled, then smirked. "Oh, it's you. Grid guy. Didn't scare you off, huh?" "Nah," I said, leaning back like I owned the place, which, technically, my family kinda did. "Figured I'd stick around, see if you're as smart as you think you are." Her eyes narrowed, but there was a glint in them, like she was sizing me up for a fight she knew she'd win. "All right, hotshot," she said, spinning her laptop toward me. "Explain this." The screen showed a graph with jagged lines and numbers I couldn't make heads or tails of. "That's my prototype's efficiency curve. Tell me what it means, or admit you're out of your league." I stared at it, my Stanford degree feeling about as useful as a paper towel in a storm. It goes up?" She laughed again, that same damn laugh, and I swear it hit me like a shot of whiskey, warm, sharp, addictive. "Close enough," she said. "It's a battery design. Cuts energy loss to 5%. Could power a whole town off one wind turbine. But you wouldn't get that, Mr. Private Jet." "Try me," I shot back. "I might surprise you." And that's how it started. She didn't care that I was Ethan Caldwell, heir to a fortune that could buy half of Silicon Valley. She didn't ask about my yacht or my penthouse. She just talked about renewable energy, about rural towns getting screwed by big energy, about a world where power didn't come with a billionaire's name attached. I listened, nodding like an idiot, and for the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about profit margins or how to impress someone. I was just there. We swapped numbers before the conference ended, scribbled on a napkin because her phone was dead and I'd left mine in the suite. I texted her that night. "Coffee tomorrow? No jets, promise." She replied with an eye-roll emoji and an address in Oakland. The next day, I ditched the suit for jeans and a hoodie, drove my own car, a beat-up Tesla I kept for normal days, and met her at a hole-in-the-wall spot called Brewed Awakening. The place smelled like burnt espresso and cinnamon, with mismatched chairs and a barista who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Sophie was already there, in a faded UC Berkeley sweatshirt, her hair loose and wild, sipping a black coffee that probably cost less than my socks. "You're late," she said, not looking up from her notebook. "Traffic," I lied, sliding into the seat across from her. "You gonna quiz me again?" "Depends," she said, finally meeting my eyes. "You gonna keep pretending you're not some rich kid slumming it?" I grinned. "Caught me. But I'm here, aren't I?" She studied me for a second, then shrugged. "Fair. So what's your deal, Ethan? Why's a guy like you chasing a nerd like me?" I could have thrown out some smooth line. God knows I'd used plenty at yacht parties. But with her, it felt wrong. Honestly, I said, leaning forward, you're the first person in forever who didn't kiss my ass the second you heard my name. It's refreshing. She raised an eyebrow. Low bar, huh? You have no idea, I said, and we both laughed. That coffee turned into a ritual. Secret meetups in Oakland, away from the San Francisco glitter where someone might recognize me. Late-night walks up in the Berkeley Hills, where she'd point at the stars and ramble about particle physics while I pretended to keep up. Dinners at tiny spots, taco trucks, pho joints, where the food was greasy and perfect, nothing like the Michelin-starred crap I'd grown up on. Every time I was with her, the Ethan Caldwell mask slipped a little more. She didn't care about my money or my connections. She cared about ideas, about making a dent in the world, and somehow, she was making a dent in me too. Then there was that night, the one that turned everything upside down. It was a Friday, rain hammering Oakland like it was trying to wash the city clean. We'd planned to grab takeout, but the storm hit hard, so we ended up at her place, a cramped one-bedroom near Lake Merritt, with peeling paint and a radiator that clanked like a dying engine. I'd never been there before, and stepping inside felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. The room was a mess. Books stacked on every surface, a whiteboard covered in scribbles, that old desk lamp casting a yellow glow. Sophie kicked off her sneakers, muttering about the weather, and I just stood there, watching her move like she owned every inch of the chaos. She caught me staring and smirked. What? Too low rent for you? Nah, I said, stepping closer. Just you. She tilted her head, a challenge in her eyes. Careful, grid guy. You're in my world now. My hand brushed her shoulder, and that was it. The spark caught. I pulled her in, her body crashing against mine, and the air went electric. Rain tapped the window, syncing with our quickening breaths. Her hair was a wild mess, her eyes blazing like wildfire, and she gripped my shirt, whispering, "You don't have to be anybody. Just be you." And those words lit me up, pouring fuel on a fire I didn't know was burning. I kissed her, hard and deep, like I was drowning and she was air. Every wall I'd built crumbling in the heat of it. My fingers tangled in her hair, tugging just enough, and she nipped my lip, playful but fierce, sending a jolt through me. We stumbled onto her tiny sofa, clothes hitting the floor like shed skins of the lives we'd left behind. In that moment, it was just us, raw, wild, unstoppable. A fire too big to contain, burning out the whole damn world beyond those walls. When we finally caught our breath, sprawled across that lumpy couch, she traced a finger down my chest and grinned. Not bad for a rich kid. I laughed, pulling her closer. Not bad for a nerd. The next morning, I ran into Jake Torres, my best friend since Stanford, the only guy from my old life I'd told about Sophie. We grabbed breakfast at a diner in the Mission, and he caught me grinning like a fool over my pancakes. "Dude," he said, smirking around a bite of bacon, "she's the real deal. Don't screw this up." "I won't," I said, and I meant it. Sophie wasn't just a fling, she was a wake-up call. Every second with her made my old life feel like a movie I'd watched too many times, all flash and no soul. I didn't know where this was going, but I knew one thing. I was in too deep to turn back, and that's when the trouble started brewing. Because a guy like me doesn't walk away from a life like mine without the world pushing back. I should have known it wouldn't be easy. 3 months into whatever this thing was with Sophie, I was riding high, sneaking around Oakland with her, dodging the San Francisco spotlight, feeling like I'd cracked the code to a life that actually meant something. But you don't just waltz out of a world like mine without someone noticing, and when they did, it hit like a freight train. It started with a dumb idea, bringing Sophie to one of Mom's famous garden parties at our place in Pacific Heights. I'd been dodging their calls, Dad's clipped voicemails about responsibility, Mom's texts begging me to stop this nonsense. But I figured it was time to rip the Band-Aid off. "They'll love you," I told Sophie, squeezing her hand as we pulled up in my Tesla. She raised an eyebrow, tugging at the hem of her borrowed dress, a simple black number I'd convinced her to wear instead of her usual sweatshirt. "Yeah, right," she muttered. "Rich folks don't vibe with girls like me." She wasn't wrong to worry. The Caldwell estate was a different planet. White roses climbing trellises, a string quartet playing some Mozart crap, waiters in bow ties floating around with trays of crab cakes and Prosecco. The bay sparkled below, framed by the Golden Gate, and the air smelled like money and lavender. Mom was in her element, gliding between guests in a cream Chanel suit, her pearls gleaming like tiny moons. Dad stood by the bar, nursing a scotch, his gray eyes scanning the crowd like a hawk. I led Sophie through the maze of suits and sundresses, feeling every stare latch onto us. Whispers followed. "Who's she?" Caldwell's kid brought a date, and I could tell she hated it. Her shoulders stiffened, but she kept her chin up, clutching my arm like it was a lifeline. We made it to Mom first. She turned, her smile freezing when she saw Sophie. "Ethan, darling," she said, her voice syrupy but sharp. "Who's this?" "Mom, this is Sophie Nguyen," I said, proud as hell. "She's a scientist, working on energy storage. She's gonna change the world." Sophie gave a small wave. "Hey, nice place." And Mom's eyes flicked over her. Dress, sneakers, the whole package, and I saw the judgment click into place. "Oh," she said, her smile tightening. "How charming." Then she dropped her glass. It wasn't dramatic, just slipped from her fingers, shattering on the stone patio with a delicate crack. The sound cut through the chatter, and every head turned. Dad was over in 3 strides, his face a mask of calm that scared me more than any yelling ever could. "Ethan," he said, low enough that only we could hear. "A word. Now." He didn't wait for me to answer, just steered me toward the house, leaving Sophie standing there with Mom and a dozen nosy guests. Inside, the library smelled like old books and bourbon. Dad shut the door, leaned against his desk, and fixed me with that stare he'd used on hostile takeovers. "What the hell are you doing?" he said. "This girl, whoever she is, she's not one of us. End it or you're out. I mean it this time." "She's not some fling, Dad," I shot back. "She's real. More real than anything in this damn house." His jaw tightened. "You're throwing away our legacy for some dreamer? $5 billion, Ethan. Generations of work. Think." "I have," I said, my voice shaking but solid. "I choose her." He didn't blink. "Then you're done. No money, no company, no family. Good luck out there." Mom burst in then, her heels clicking, tears streaking her mascara. "Ethan, please," she begged. "What will people say? You can't do this to us." But I was already gone, mentally at least. I walked out, grabbed Sophie's hand, and we peeled out of Pacific Heights like we were escaping a crime scene. She didn't say much, just stared out the window as the mansions blurred by. "You okay?" I asked finally. She nodded, but her voice was tight. "They hate me." "They don't know you?" I said. "They'll come around." Spoiler, they didn't. The fallout was fast and brutal. Jake Torres, my best friend, the guy who'd called Sophie the real deal, called me the next morning. I met him at his office in the financial district, a sleek space with views of the Transamerica Pyramid. He leaned back in his leather chair, sipping a Red Bull, and dropped the bomb. "Look, man," he said, not meeting my eyes. "I get it. She's great. But our investors? They're freaking out. You're off the rails and I can't risk the fund. I'm pulling out of our deal. 15 years, Jake, I said, my chest tightening. And you're bailing over this? It's not personal, he said, shrugging. It's business. Business. That word echoed as I walked out, the city noise swallowing me up. By the end of the week, my phone stopped buzzing. Partners ghosted me. Board members dodged my calls. Friends I'd known since prep school crossed the street when they saw me coming. The tabloids had a field day. Caldwell air dumps fortune for mystery woman. They painted Sophie as a gold digger, a nobody clawing her way up, and every headline twisted the knife deeper. I moved into her Oakland apartment that weekend. No penthouse, no staff, just a lumpy mattress and a fridge that hummed too loud. The first night, I tried to do laundry and turned all my white shirts pink. Sophie laughed so hard she cried, then showed me how to separate colors, her hands brushing mine as we sorted socks. It was small, stupid stuff like that. Cooking ramen because I burned the chicken, arguing over who got the good pillow. That made me realize how fake my old life had been. But it wasn't all cute moments. The money ran dry fast. No more expense accounts. No more just charge it. I sold the Tesla, traded it for a beat-up Honda that smelled like stale fries. Sophie's research stipend barely covered rent, and I was too proud to ask for help, not that anyone was offering. The doubts crept in late at night, when the radiator clanked and Sophie was asleep beside me. What the hell was I doing? I'd grown up with chauffeurs and caviar. Could I really hack it out here, scraping by with a girl my family despised? One night, I hit a breaking point. Sophie was at the lab, and I was alone, staring at my phone. Jake's number glowed on the screen. I could call him, say I'd made a mistake, beg for a way back. My thumb hovered over the button, my old life flashing like a lifeline. Yachts, jets, the Caldwell name. Then I heard the door creak. Sophie stumbled in, her hair a mess, her arms full of papers. She'd been up for 20 hours straight, testing her battery prototype, and she looked dead on her feet. She didn't see me at first, just dropped her stuff and collapsed onto the sofa, curling up like a kid. Her notebook slid to the floor, pages splayed open with scribbles and dreams of a better world. I put the phone down, walked over, pulled a blanket over her. She stirred, mumbling, "You're still here?" "Yeah," I said, my voice thick. "I'm still here." That was the moment, the second I knew I couldn't go back. Not to Dad's money, not to Jake's deals, not to any of it. Sophie wasn't just some fling I'd get over. She was my shot at something real, and I'd be damned if I let that slip away. But the world wasn't done pushing back. Not by a long shot. For a minute there, it felt like we were unstoppable. Sophie and me, holed up in her tiny Oakland apartment, dreaming bigger than the Bay Area fog could swallow. She'd spend nights hunched over her laptop at UC Berkeley's lab, tweaking her battery design, while I'd pace our cramped living room, scribbling business plans on napkins because we couldn't afford printer paper. We were broke as hell, living off her stipend and the last of my savings, but we had something better than money, a shot at building something real. Then it happened. One night, Sophie burst through the door, her eyes wild and bright, her voice shaking with excitement. "Ethan, I did it!" she yelled, waving a USB drive like it was a winning lottery ticket. "The prototype works, 5% loss, scalable, cheap. It's freaking done." I grabbed her, spinning her around until we both tripped over a stack of books. "You're a genius," I said, kissing her hard, tasting the coffee and adrenaline on her lips. "This is it, Soph. We're going to change everything." And we did. Or at least we started to. I'd spent years watching Dad turn ideas into empires, so I knew the game. We needed a company, a team, cash. I called it GreenSpark, Sophie's brainchild, my hustle. I cashed out what was left of my trust fund scraps, Rented a shoebox office in San Jose with flickering lights and a coffee machine that spat sludge and got to work. Sophie handled the science. I handled the pitch. Jake Torres was the first call I made. Yeah, the same Jake who'd bailed on me when I picked Sophie over the family fortune. He'd texted a half-assed apology a month back. Sorry, man, business is business. And I'd let it slide because 15 years of friendship don't die easy. Dude, I said when he picked up, I've got something big. GreenSpark, renewable energy, real impact. You in? He hesitated, then sighed. All right, Caldwell. I owe you one. I'll run ops. Keep your crazy ass organized. Deal, I said, grinning. Jake brought connections, VCs, tech insiders, the kind of people who'd take a meeting with a guy like him. Within weeks, he hooked us up with Henry Voss, a grizzled investor who'd made billions betting on wild cards like Tesla back in the day. We met him at a diner off Highway 101, greasy tables, stale fries, no BS. Sophie laid out her data. Graphs, prototypes, a vision of clean energy for every broke town, big energy ignored. I chimed in with the numbers. Production costs, market size, ROI. Henry's eyes lit up like a kid at Christmas. This isn't just a startup, he said, jabbing a fry at us. This is a damn revolution. He wrote a check for $2 million on the spot. GreenSpark took off. We hired engineers, scrappy kids fresh out of Caltech and MIT who believed in Sophie's dream. The San Jose office hummed. Whiteboards covered in equations, pizza boxes stacked in corners, late nights fueled by Red Bull and hope. In 6 months, we had a working model, a patent pending, and buzz in the valley. Investors who'd ghosted me a year ago were suddenly blowing up my inbox. For the first time since I'd walked out of Dad's office, I felt like I was winning, not just surviving. But winning comes with a catch. It started with whispers. Sophie's old lab buddy, Tyler Brooks, popped up out of nowhere. He'd worked with her at Berkeley years back, a wiry guy with a chip on his shoulder and a grudge against anyone who outshone him. One day he cornered me at a tech mixer in Palo Alto, his breath sour with cheap beer. Your girl's a fraud, he sneered. That battery tech? She stole it from me. Watch yourself, rich boy. I laughed it off. Take it up with her data, man. Good luck. But the next week, a blog post dropped. Some shady site claiming Sophie had plagiarized her research. Then another. Then a tweet from Tyler went viral. GreenSpark's genius is a thief. Check the dates. The internet ate it up. Trolls, skeptics, even a few legit outlets ran with it. Our inbox flooded with hate mail. Sophie brushed it off. He's jealous, Ethan. Ignore it. But I saw the strain in her eyes, the way she'd stare at her laptop like it might bite her. I should have seen the real storm coming. Jake started acting weird, showing up late, dodging questions, taking calls in the hallway with his voice hushed. I chalked it up to stress. GreenSpark was growing fast, and he was juggling ops like a pro. Then one night, I crashed at the office, too wired to drive home. Around 2 a.m., I heard him on the phone through the thin walls. Yeah, it's locked in, he said. 10 mil up front, full tech rights. They'll bury the green angle. Oil's where the money's at. My stomach dropped. I yanked the door open, and there he was. Jake, caught mid-sentence, his face paling under the fluorescent lights. Ethan, he started, but I cut him off. Who's they? I snapped. Who are you selling us out to? He stammered, then squared his shoulders. Look, man, it's ExxonMobil. They want the tech, 10 million cash, plus a cut of profits. We'd be set for life. This green dream's cute, but it's not realistic. 15 years, I said, my voice low, shaking. 15 years, and you sell us out for oil money? Sophie's vision, our vision, means nothing to you. It's business, he shouted, slamming his phone down. You think 2 mil from Voss is going to change the world? Wake up, Ethan. You're not some hero. You're a trust fund kid playing house." The room spun. I wanted to deck him, but I just stood there, fists clenched. "Get out," I said finally. "You're done." He grabbed his jacket, smirking. "You'll crash without me. Good luck, bro." The door slammed, and the silence hit like a punch. I didn't tell Sophie right away. She was already fraying. Tyler's smear campaign had investors spooked, and she was pulling all-nighters to prove her work was legit. But the next day, she found out. Not about Jake, but about me. I'd left my phone on the counter, and she saw a text I'd drafted to Jake weeks back, unsent. "Maybe you were right. I don't know if I can do this." It was from that night I'd almost caved, right after the pink shirt fiasco. I'd never sent it, but she didn't know that. "Am I just your escape plan?" she asked, her voice breaking as she held up the phone. We were in the Berkeley lab. Sterile white walls, humming machines, the air thick with tension. "No," I said, stepping toward her. "Sophie, that was a bad night. I didn't mean it. I didn't send it." "But you wrote it," she shot back, tears welling up. "You were halfway out the door, Ethan. I trusted you, and you're still dreaming of jets and penthouses." "I'm here," I yelled, louder than I meant to. "I gave up everything for this. For us. You think I'd throw that away?" She shook her head, wiping her eyes. "I don't know what to think anymore." She walked out, leaving me alone with her prototype glowing on the table. A damn miracle I might have just ruined. That night I called a meeting. Me, Sophie, our tiny team. I laid it all out. Jake's betrayal, the Exxon deal, my screw-up with the text. Sophie sat across from me, arms crossed, silent. "He's gone," I said, meeting her eyes. "I kicked him out. This is our company, your dream. I'm all in, Soph, no matter what." The team rallied, engineers swearing to fight Tyler's lies, promising to double down. Sophie didn't say much, just nodded. But when everyone left, she stayed. "Don't lie to me again," she said quietly. "I can't take it." "I won't," I promised, and I meant it. Jake was right about one thing. We might crash without him. Investors were shaky, Tyler was gunning for us, and GreenSpark was teetering. But I'd made my choice. Sophie, this dream, this fight. No going back. You ever feel like the universe is testing you, just piling it on until you break? That's where we were. GreenSpark was bleeding cash, Tyler Brooks was out for blood, and Sophie and I were hanging on by a thread. I'd thought kicking Jake out was the hard part, but turns out that was just the warm-up. After Jake bailed, the dominoes started falling. Investors got spooked. $2 million from Henry Voss sounds like a lot until you're paying a team, renting lab space, and fighting a PR nightmare. Tyler's plagiarism accusations hit the mainstream. TechCrunch ran a piece. GreenSpark star scientist, genius, or fraud? And the trolls went wild. Our inbox was a cesspool of death threats and go back to Oakland garbage. Sophie acted tough, but I'd catch her staring at her phone, jaw tight, scrolling through the hate like it was her job. Then Tyler upped the ante. A week after Jake's exit, we got served papers, legal ones. He was suing Sophie for intellectual property theft, claiming her battery tech was his from their Berkeley days. The guy had no proof, just old emails and a grudge, but lawsuits don't need truth to tank you. They need money, and we didn't have it. Our lawyer, a scrappy guy named Patel we'd hired on the cheap, laid it out. He's got a big firm behind him, probably some energy giant footing the bill. You settle or you fight and pray. "Fight," Sophie said, no hesitation, her voice like steel. We were in the San Jose office, pizza boxes everywhere, a whiteboard with "Fuck Tyler" scrawled in red marker. "I'm not letting him steal this, it's mine." I nodded, but inside I was freaking out. Fighting meant legal fees we couldn't pay, more bad press, and a team already stretched thin. Half our engineers were pulling double shifts. The other half were fielding calls from jittery VCs. Henry Voss stuck with us. Bless that crazy old man. But even he was getting antsy. "I believe in you kids," he told me over the phone. "But results beat promises. Show me something." We tried. Sophie locked herself in the Berkeley lab, running tests to prove her work was original. Timestamps, data logs, anything to bury Tyler's lies. I hit the road, pitching to anyone who'd listen. Small funds, angel investors, even a weird hippie co-op in Marin County that smelled like patchouli and regret. But the headlines followed me. Caldwell's startup sinking fast. Billionaire brat's love affair implodes. Every no felt like a brick on my chest. Then Dad called. It was a Thursday, gray and dreary. The kind of day where San Francisco hides under a blanket of fog. I was in the Honda, parked outside a failed meeting in the Mission, when my phone buzzed. "Ethan," he said, his voice clipped, all business. "Come to the office. We need to talk." I should have hung up, but curiosity, or maybe desperation, got me. An hour later, I was back in that leather and espresso tomb at Caldwell Enterprises, facing him across the desk. Mom was there too, her eyes red but her posture perfect, like she'd rehearsed this. "We've seen the news," Dad said, sliding a tablet toward me. It was a Forbes article. "GreenSpark's collapse, a cautionary tale. You're done, son. This little experiment, it's over." "It's not over," I shot back. "We're close. Sophie's tech works. We just need time." "Time?" He snorted. "You've got nothing. Lawsuits, no cash, a team of kids playing startup. Come back, end this with the girl, and I'll fix it. Money, lawyers, whatever you need. You're a Caldwell. Act like it." Mom reached for my hand, her voice soft. "Please, Ethan. We miss you. This isn't who you are." I stared at the tablet, then at them. The lifeline was right there. Money, power, the Caldwell name. I could ditch the Honda, the ramen dinners, the sleepless nights. All I had to do was walk away from Sophie. My throat tightened. "I'll think about it," I said, and bolted before they could say more. That night, Sophie hit her limit. We were in the apartment, rain pounding the windows, the radiator clanking like a death rattle. She'd just spent 12 hours in court prep with Patel, and she looked like a ghost. Pale, hollow-eyed, her sweatshirt swallowing her frame. I tried to lighten the mood, tossing her a beer. "Rough day, huh? We'll get through it." She didn't catch it, just let it roll across the floor. "Maybe we won't," she said, her voice flat. "Maybe this is too much." "What are you talking about?" I asked, stepping closer. She looked up, eyes wet and furious. "I saw your car outside Caldwell Enterprises today. Lynn texted me, she drove by. Were you begging Daddy to take you back?" "No," I said, too fast. "I mean, he called me in. Yeah, but I didn't." "Stop." She cut me off, standing. "I can't keep wondering if you're all in or just waiting for an exit. This lawsuit, Tyler, the company, it's killing me, Ethan. And if you're not here for real, maybe we should just end it." "End it?" My voice cracked. "Sophie, I gave up everything for this. For us. You think I'd throw that away now?" "I don't know," she yelled, tears spilling over. "I can't drag you down anymore. Maybe you'd be better off back in Pacific Heights, signing checks instead of scraping by with me." She grabbed her jacket and stormed out, the door slamming so hard it shook the walls. I stood there, stunned. The beer can still leaking on the floor. She was gone, and I didn't know if she'd come back. I lost it after that. The rain was coming down in sheets, turning Oakland into a blurry mess of neon and puddles. I walked. Didn't even grab a coat. Just let the cold soak through my hoodie, my sneakers squishing with every step. My head was a war zone. Dad's offer replayed on a loop. Money, safety, the easy way out. Sophie's words cut deeper. Maybe we should end it. I'd fought so hard to get here. Ditched the jets, the yacht, the whole damn Caldwell circus. And now it was crumbling. GreenSpark was dying. Sophie was slipping away. Maybe I'd been kidding myself, thinking I could hack this life. I stopped in the middle of a street, some nowhere corner near Lake Merritt, rain stinging my face. My hands balled into fists, and I yelled into the storm, "I'm not giving up on us!" It was raw, loud, stupid. Probably scared some poor dog walker half to death. But it snapped me out of it. I wasn't done. Not with her. Not with this dream. I ran back, drenched and shivering, and called Henry Voss. It was 1 a.m., but he picked up, grumbling, "This better be good, kid." "It is," I said, breathless. "GreenSpark's not dead." "Sophie's tech. It's the future. I don't care what the headlines say, what the lawsuit costs. We're fighting. For every town that needs this, every kid who deserves clean air. Give me one more shot." He was quiet so long I thought he'd hung up. Then he chuckled. "You've got balls, Caldwell. All right, one meeting. Bring the girl, the data, everything. Next week, L.A. Don't screw it up." I hung up, my heart pounding. Sophie wasn't back yet. Her phone went straight to voicemail. But I knew one thing. I'd fight for her, for us, until I had nothing left. The world could throw whatever it wanted at us. I wasn't running. I don't know how we pulled it off, but we did. That week, after I stood screaming in the Oakland rain, everything hung on a razor's edge. GreenSpark, Sophie, me. She came back the next morning, soaked and quiet, her eyes puffy from crying. I didn't ask where she'd been, just handed her a towel and said, "L.A., one shot. You in?" She nodded, and that was enough. We were still us, battered but breathing. The meeting with Henry Voss was in a glassy high-rise in downtown Los Angeles, all steel and sunshine, a million miles from our Oakland chaos. Sophie wore her Berkeley sweatshirt, screw the dress code, and I rocked a wrinkled button-up I'd ironed with a frying pan because, well, we didn't own an iron. Our team crammed into the Honda, me, Sophie, Patel the lawyer, and 2 engineers clutching laptops like life rafts. We had 1 hour to save GreenSpark. Henry sat across a polished table, arms crossed, looking like a grizzled cowboy sizing up a bad bet. Sophie went first, laid out her data, her voice steady despite the bags under her eyes. "This is mine," she said, pointing to time-stamped files. "Tyler's lying. Here's every test, every tweak, back to 2019. He's got nothing." Then I took over, pitching like my life depended on it. Because it did. 12 towns in California are ready to pilot this, I said. Clean energy. Dirt cheap. We're not just a company. We're a fix for a broken system. You saw Tesla take off. This is bigger. Henry chewed his lip, then leaned forward. Lawsuit's a mess. Investors hate mess. Truth beats mess, Sophie shot back. Give us a chance to prove it. He stared at us, then grinned, a rare, crooked thing. All right, kids. 5 mil more. Beat the bastard in court and we'll talk billions. We walked out shaking, half from relief, half from terror. Patel clapped my back. You're nuts. But it worked. Sophie grabbed my hand, squeezing hard, and for the first time in weeks, I saw hope in her eyes. Tyler's lawsuit crashed and burned 2 months later. Court was a circus. His slick lawyers in Armani, ours in thrift store ties. But Sophie's data was a brick wall. Emails, logs, even a notebook she'd kept since grad school proved every line of her tech was hers. The judge tossed the case, and Tyler slunk out, tail between his legs. TechCrunch flipped the script. GreenSpark cleared. Nguyen's genius vindicated. The trolls went quiet, and the buzz came roaring back. Henry's 5 million lit the fuse. We moved GreenSpark to a real HQ in San Diego, glass walls, turbine models spinning in the lobby, a lab that hummed with possibility. Sophie's battery hit production, small runs at first, powering rural grids in Fresno and Bakersfield. Towns that hadn't seen reliable lights in years flipped the switch, and every thank you email felt like gold. Investors who'd ghosted us begged for meetings. We picked the ones who cared about impact over profit. 2 years after I'd walked away from Dad's office, GreenSpark hit a valuation of $12 billion, more than the Caldwell fortune I'd ditched. The headlines flipped too. Nguyen's clean energy revolution takes off. Caldwell's gamble pays big. Sophie landed on Forbes' cover, her in that damn sweatshirt, smirking like she'd known all along. I framed it, hung it in our apartment, still that same Oakland dive, because moving felt like betraying where we'd started. But the real kicker? Lynn dropped a bomb one night over pho at our favorite spot on International Boulevard. She was in town from Fresno, slurping noodles with us, when she leaned across the table, pointing her chopsticks at me. "You know she turned down NASA for you, right?" I froze, broth dripping off my spoon. "What?" Sophie choked on her drink, glaring at her sister. "Lynn, shut up." "Nope," Lynn said, grinning. "Year we met you, NASA offered her a gig. Energy research, big lab, the works. She said no, wanted to stay here, build this with you." I stared at Sophie, my chest tight. "You never told me." She shrugged, cheeks red. "Didn't matter. This mattered more." Lynn laughed. "She gave up the stars for you, man. Hope you're worth it." I reached for her hand under the table, my voice low. "You're insane." And yeah, I'm trying to be. That hit me harder than the 12 billion. I'd walked away from a fortune for her, but she'd walked away from her own dream, one I didn't even know about. We weren't just a team. We were each other's anchor. The call from my parents came a week after the Forbes cover. I was in the San Diego lab, watching engineers tweak a new prototype, when Mom's name flashed on my phone. I almost didn't pick up, but Sophie nudged me. "Answer it. See what they want." We met them at the old Caldwell office. Same leather, same espresso, same heavy air. Dad looked smaller somehow, his suit hanging loose. Mom's eyes were puffy, no pearls this time. They didn't waste time. "We were wrong," Dad said, his voice barely above a whisper. "About her. About you. Everything." Mom reached for Sophie's hand across the desk, the same desk where they'd tried to buy me back. "We read the articles," she said, trembling. "What you're doing. It's incredible. We're proud, Ethan. And Sophie, we're so sorry." Sophie didn't flinch, just squeezed Mom's hand back. "Everyone deserves a chance to grow," she said, calm as ever. "Thanks for trying." I didn't cry, okay, maybe a little, but it cracked something open. Years of hurt don't vanish in a handshake, but watching Dad fumble for words and Mom hug Sophie like a lifeline, that was a start. They came to the San Diego HQ a month later, wide-eyed at the turbines, asking Sophie questions like she was the boss. She was, in a way. Today, GreenSpark's bigger than I ever imagined. Plants in 10 states, deals in Europe, kids in classrooms learning from Sophie's designs. I wake up every morning next to her, in that same Oakland apartment, her hair a mess, and her brain already buzzing with ideas. We still hit Brood Awakening on Saturdays, splitting a blueberry muffin, arguing about quantum physics while the barista rolls his eyes. The headlines call us a billionaire power couple, but to him, we're just the weirdos who tip too much. Looking back, losing everything was the best damn thing that ever happened to me. It stripped away the bullshit, the jets, the yacht, the Caldwell cage, and showed me what's real. Sophie taught me that wealth isn't a bank account. It's impact, love, the guts to build something that outlasts you. GreenSpark's not just a company. It's a legacy, one we earned, not inherited. Sometimes I catch glimpses of my old self in the entrepreneurs who pitch us, hungry for cash, chasing status. I tell them this story, not as a fairy tale, but as proof. Pick what matters and the rest falls into place. Sophie and I are building a future where clean energy is not a luxury, it's a right. That's worth more than any penthouse. So here's the thing. When I chose her over 5 billion, people called me crazy. Maybe I was. But I didn't lose a fortune. I gained a life. We're still at it, one breakthrough at a time, proving love and purpose beat money every day of the week. What do you think? Would you trade it all for love or keep the cash and run? Drop a comment below. I'm dying to hear your take. And if this story hit you in the feels, hit that subscribe button. We've got more real-life tales coming, stories about choices that change everything. Thanks for sticking with me and Sophie. See you next time.